All right, today we're taking an inside look at one of the most important, most complex structures in our bodies. We're going on a guided tour of the cell nucleus, so let's dive right in. So, picture this, a bustling, super secure command center, directing every single operation and storing all the blueprints for a massive, sprawling city. Well, believe it or not, that exact structure exists inside pretty much every single one of your trillions of cells. And here's the wild part. This command center is almost unbelievably small. The average cell nucleus is just 6 micrometers across. To give you some perspective on that, you could line up more than a dozen of them across the width of a single human hair. And yet, this tiny little thing takes up about 10% of the cell's entire volume.
Okay, so first stop on our tour. Let's talk about the mission. What does this command center actually do?
It really has two main jobs. First, think of it as a high-security vault. Its number one priority is protecting our genetic blueprint, our DNA. Second, it's the control tower. It regulates which genes get turned on or off, a process we call gene expression. It's in charge of absolutely everything the cell does, from growing and dividing to just doing its day-to-day job. Now, you can't have a secure facility without some serious border control, right? Well, the nucleus is no different. For our next stop, let's check out how it controls everything that comes in and goes out. The nucleus is wrapped in this really sophisticated double membrane barrier called the nuclear envelope. It's kind of like having two concentric walls that separate the precious cargo inside the nucleus, the nucleoplasm, from the chaotic, busy factory floor of the rest of the cell, which is called the cytoplasm. But this isn't just some solid wall. It's actually dotted with thousands of gateways. In a typical mammalian cell, you're going to find somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 of these things, and they're called nuclear pore complexes. And these pores, they're not just simple holes. Oh no, they are incredibly sophisticated molecular machines that act like bouncers at a club. You see, special proteins called importants grab onto cargo and basically escort it through the pore. Once it's safely inside, the cargo gets released, and the now empty important is sent back out. And it works the other way around for exports, using proteins called exportins. It's this super tightly regulated system that makes sure only the right molecules get to pass.
So what keeps this whole structure from just collapsing in on itself? Well, that's the job of something called the nuclear lamina. It's this internal mesh of proteins that's basically like the steel framework of a building. It provides all the support, it gives the nucleus its nice round shape, and it anchors everything in place. It is so important that defects in these proteins can actually lead to some really severe genetic diseases.
Okay, we've made it past security. Now let's go deeper inside and see how the nucleus pulls off one of the most incredible data storage feats in the entire universe. Get this. Inside that tiny 6 micrometer sphere, the nucleus has to store roughly 2 meters of DNA. That's right, 2 meters. It's an absolutely mind-boggling feat of packaging. It's like trying to pack 40 kilometers of superfine thread into a tennis ball. I mean, how is that even possible? Well, the secret is all about organization. The DNA isn't just a tangled mess of spaghetti. It's neatly wound around proteins, forming this complex called chromatin. And this stuff exists in two main states. You've got euchromatin, which is loosely packed and holds all the active genes the cell is using right now, and then you've got heterochromatin, which is super tightly compacted, locking down all the genes that aren't needed at the moment. But you know, this highly organized space isn't just for storage. It's also a dynamic, bustling factory floor with all sorts of specialized workstations. So here's one of the coolest, most fascinating things about the nucleus. It has all these different compartments called nuclear bodies. But here's the twist. Unlike most organelles, they don't have any membranes. They're like these pop-up workshops that can form and dissolve whenever they're needed, just bringing together the right molecules to get specific jobs done. The biggest and the most famous of these workshops is the nucleolus. You can usually see it as a dark spot right inside the nucleus. Its main job? To be the cell's ribosome factory. It builds all the tiny molecular machines that will go out into the cytoplasm and create all of the cell's proteins. And the nucleolus is not alone. You've got other little workshops that are busy too. There are splicing speckles that edit genetic messages, Cajal bodies that help process RNA. There are even these mysterious structures called PML bodies, and we're actually still trying to figure out everything they do. It's this dynamic organization that makes the whole nuclear factory so incredibly efficient. So we've seen the vault, the border, the library, and the factories. But what's the big picture here? What's the advantage of having all of this stuff contained inside a nucleus? Why does it even matter? The single biggest advantage is control. I mean, separating the genetic blueprints in the nucleus from the protein factories out in the cytoplasm was a massive evolutionary leap forward. This separation allows for levels of gene regulation that are just not possible in simpler cells, like bacteria, where everything's just kind of jumbled together in one chaotic space.
And here's a perfect example of that control in action. So our genes have these non-coding sections that have to be removed. By keeping the brand new messenger RNA inside the nucleus, the cell gets a chance to do some quality control. It can carefully splice out all the unnecessary bits before the final message is shipped out. Without the nucleus, that couldn't happen, and you could end up with useless or even harmful proteins being made.
So, to do a really quick recap of our tour, the nuclear envelope acts as the secure border, controlling access. The chromatin is the incredibly dense and perfectly organized data storage system, and the nucleolus is the main factory for building essential machinery. Each part plays an absolutely critical role in making the command center work.
You know, the existence of this one structure is arguably the single biggest difference between simple life, like bacteria, and all the complex life on Earth, from fungi to plants to us. It is the absolute foundation of our biology. And that leads to a really profound question: where in the world did it come from?
And the honest truth is, we don't know for sure. There are a bunch of competing ideas, from ancient viral infections to crazy symbiotic events. But the evolutionary origin of the nucleus is still one of the most significant and fascinating mysteries in all of science. It's a puzzle that sits at the very heart of who we are.